Hi, I'm Stefan, Senior Solutions Architect from AWS.
Hi, I'm Ed Thompson. I'm CTO and co-founder of Matillion, and this is my architecture.
Hey Ed, okay, thanks for bringing this architecture here today. I see you using our generative AI service Bedrock in this architecture. I would love to learn how you make the life of data engineers easier using generative AI in your platform.
Oh, fantastic. So we're all about at Matillion making the data engineer as productive as possible. And what our data integration tools does is allow them to build AI-powered data pipelines built on cloud data warehouses such as Amazon Redshift. So the way that works and the way that we've incorporated the new AI platforms from AWS like Bedrock into the service is these data engineers here, they have a new service which is part of our product, which is called the Copilot, which we run on Amazon EKS.
Okay, what does the Copilot do then?
So the Copilot, there's two kind of main things. First of all, in the background, it's collecting all of the information about how to build pipelines, low-code pipelines in Matillion Data Productivity Cloud.
Okay.
So it's doing that by collecting the product documentation, by collecting the metadata from Amazon Redshift.
That's the Redshift from a customer, right?
This is the customer's metadata, yeah.
Got it.
So it's telling us what tables and columns they have.
The schema and so on and so forth.
And more detailed information about that.
And the product documentation is kind of the knowledge about Matillion as a product.
Exactly. Just like a human would read the manual to figure out how to use the product, the LLM needs to read the manual too.
Okay.
I always try to think of LLM as people. It's a good way to kind of get a good result, I often find. And the final piece, we have this component information service. That is essentially saying this is exactly what components of the DAG that the customer can use. And a component of the DAG might be something like a filter, across-the-line calculations, a window function, something like that.
Got it. The DAG is kind of the ETL job, right?
It's
broken
the
down
data flow. Yeah, it's the transformation. Yeah,
all
absolutely.
Right. And you're feeding all that into Bedrock and using Titan.
Yeah, we're using Titan to do embeddings, and then we actually store that data over here in Amazon RDS with its new PG vector capability.
Cool.
And that allows us to vectorize all of that information for the customer per customer.
Got it. Got it.
The second part of the story is the data engineer can then have a conversation with the tool. And that conversation is handled using the context from PG Vector in a RAG or retrieval augmented generation pipeline.
What would be a typical question that one of your data engineers is asking?
That's good. So they typically be asking maybe something simple like, how do I join these two tables together? And we can use the inference and the schema and all the understanding that the large language model has to do that. Or that might even be a more complicated multi-step process, like I have this source, I have this target table, how do I map from one to the other effectively?
Yeah, that's usually very time-consuming for the data engineers, right?
It is, and it's kind of the bread and butter work of the data engineer, but anything we can do to make that more productive is going to be great for them and great for their company. So the conversation allows them, the large language model, to modify what we call our DPL, or data productivity language. This is a YAML-based language that's really specifically designed for use with large language models.
Okay, that's a good information. So you design it that it's really, be able to be integrated with large language models such as Bedrock.
Exactly, and like I say, it's got to be most human-readable language that goes, and that makes it work better with the large language model. And so what this does is it modifies the DAG, which we store in a service called the working tree. And that is like a Git service. So everything's versioned, everything's going into Git, so nothing can be lost. And then the final part of the process is those DAGs are then executed on our workflow engine, and the actual data transformation is pushed back down to the data warehouse, such as Redshift.
Got it. And it's also presented in your user interface for the data engineer, right?
Exactly. So they can see the step-by-step process. They can see the data being modified. It's all visual. And of course, the nice thing about doing RAG in a visual tool, as opposed to like a code-based Copilot, is it constrains the visual tool into exactly what it can do. So you get much better results because you've got very key building blocks for the pipeline.
Got it. It's a very important learning also that we share here with our customers. Cool. Then there's the second perspective. Can I, as a data engineer, also use those generative AI service?
You absolutely can. So we have all of this fantastic technology. We're using it to run our Copilot. But really what's most exciting to me is getting our customers to use it to run their business. So what we want to be able to do, and what we've been able to do in the Data Productivity Cloud, is essentially build components for all of the key pieces of AI technology.
Okay.
So we've got components for loading into vector databases, components for doing embeddings, and components for prompting and interacting with the large language model. Those are run through our workflow engine. And when you build a DAG like that, the really exciting thing is bringing together the customer's data and the large language model. That's the key thing. And when we do that with RAG as well, what you get is fantastic results for really some quite complex data operations. So typically what's a customer doing? They're doing things like summarizing data, they're doing sentiment analysis, they're asking multiple questions over unstructured data, turning unstructured data into structured data.
Got it, got it. So what you do here is also remove the undifferentiated heavy lifting of tying those services together, right? Because you have the low-code tooling available to your customers.
Absolutely, and it all starts with their data, of course. So it's their data in Redshift that we're doing that transformation on.
Got it. Well, thank you for sharing this architecture with us. What was your journey with in integrating Bedrock into your platform and also making it available to your customers?
Absolutely. So, talking to our customers, the journey with Bedrock's been fantastic. Customers really were quite keen to understand what was going on behind the scenes with our Copilot, but also with the large language model they want to use. Bedrock's, I think, seen in the industry as a very trusted way to run a large language model. And the kind of progress that we've seen in the platform and having access to really what are kind of frontier top tier models, it's been fantastic. Every time it gets upgraded, our product gets better, our customers' pipeline gets better. It's win-win.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing this architecture with us.